Hey everyone, Privia here, third year Canadian med student, and welcome to my med school vlog. Today I have a good one for all of you. What I'm going to do is run through some clerkship tips. So at this time you're probably either just starting clerkship or you're going to start clerkship soon. So I thought, what better way to get into clinical rotations by going through some tips that I found to be super helpful when I was going through clerkship last year, but even better, things that I wish I would have done as well. So it's a win-win for everyone. I had a good time in my clerkship year. I'm going into my fourth year electives right now. We're gonna head out camping right now. Stay tuned if you want to hear some tips about how to do well in clerkship. So when was the last time you've seen one of those? I know, I don't know the last time either, but that's not really what I wanted to say. We just happened to stop by here, but exciting thing, I have a new intro, so let's roll the intro and then get into the rest of this video. One thing that's really important is to find the right resources. I would say in clerkship, finding resources is not the biggest problem because there's probably too many resources, to be honest. But one thing I found is that there's a lot of good textbooks out there that help with those so-called pimping questions. And then they have them for different surgery specialties, but also all the other specialties as well. And if you get one of those, it'll be really good because it just has common questions that you're going to be asked. And anytime you can answer those questions that your preceptors ask you and you look good doing it, you don't have to search a lot, then that's perfect. So essentially what I did was, in between surgeries, you have about half an hour between cleanup of the OR and then getting the new patient in. I would just read up the section on the following surgery, and then when I went in, I had a good idea of what they would ask me, and I felt very comfortable answering those questions as well. It's just an easy way to get those answers. So find the right textbook. I'd ask me, and I felt very comfortable answering those questions as well. It's just an easy way to get those answers. I'll put them right here for some examples of good textbooks. He needs some help, so I will be back. Be kind, especially when you don't want to be. That's probably the most important time to be nice to people. For example, sometimes people will not be very nice to you. Especially in medicine, it's a very high stress environment, and that stress shows, and sometimes they take it out on you. I would say in those cases, it's really important to swallow your pride, suck it up, and be nice. I don't mean this in a way where I'm saying be a pushover. I think it is important to stand up for yourself, but I think it's equally important to pick your battles. This is a case that I found with nurses, for example. If I was nice to them, they would often be nice to me, and they have a wealth of information, knowledge, and experience. So whenever I was nice to people, even if they weren't as friendly to me, they always ended up helping me out. They had no excuse to not be nice to me. And then another person who you should be very kind to is your admin team. Before starting clerkship, the year ahead of me, they told me how difficult it was to schedule things. You are working all the time, you have zero control over your schedule. And right from the beginning of clerkship, I took it upon myself to make sure that the admin teams knew me by name. They knew who I was. I would stop by their office, and it's not in a way to suck up to them, but it's so they know who you are. And I really believe that that personal relationship that you form with someone is, again, it comes down to human nature, but that's when someone sees you as a person rather than just a number or a name on a list of 30 students that they have. So it turned out that if I was in a bind or I needed a weekend off, or I needed to switch call shifts, they were much more likely to do that for me because they knew me as a person rather than just someone who's trying to get out of something. So that's an example that will make your life easier in clerkship, is be friends with the right people, and it'll make your life so much easier. It's really important to make note of your meaningful experiences. This is something that I actually didn't really do, and now I'm kicking myself for not doing it. So I wanted to share it with you so you can get on top of the game and do this yourself. When it comes to residency applications, so your CARMS interviews and your application and personal statements, apparently, I haven't been through it, but a lot of it is experience-based. They want to know what you've been throughout clerkship, if you've had any meaningful experiences, if you've had trouble working with certain patients and how you dealt with it, or with other members of your team. At that point, you're going to have to look back and try to think of all these things from the previous year, which, yeah, you can do that. That's something that I'm going to have to do, but it's so much easier if you just make note of it at the time. So while you're going through third year, if you have a meaningful patient encounter, for example, write that down, make note of that. If you had an experience where you were dealing with someone and let's say you didn't agree with the management for something that your preceptor was doing, make note of that and how you dealt with that and how you moved forward. Any big learning experiences, anything that mattered to you, or even better, shape the way that you look at medicine as a whole, or even humanity as a whole, which happens in medicine. Write that down, and it's going to, one, help with your residency application and interviews, but two, I really do believe that it's a good way to just make note of your thoughts and help you to understand why you are in medicine, what you want to get out of it, and how you can move forward in the field as well. I think it's just a point of growth. I know it sounds cheesy. You can look at it as journaling if you want, and if you don't like journaling, just call it something else, but make note of those important experiences and it will help you moving forward. Another thing I would say is write down things that seem super easy on your rotation. And the reason being is that even if you don't think you're going to go into that specialty or do electives in that specialty, there may be a chance that in your fourth year you will have to do an elective in that. And the easiest thing to do, or I should say the easiest way to shine on your fourth year elective, is if the things that come easy to you in third year, if you remember those things. And the problem is, which is, I can speak to this now because I didn't really do this, is that, for example, when I was in OBS-GYN, it was so easy to run through the protocol of when someone comes in with ruptured membranes, or when you should give penicillin, or just easy things like that. And now I don't really remember those things. So I didn't write them down. And those are very common things in maternity. So to make your life easier in fourth year, just write those things down so you can just refer to it easily when it comes to fourth year. So just write down, I would say, the common doses of medications. For example, on Gen Surg, the prep before a colonoscopy, or common pain control, or anything that seems easy at the time, just write it down. And then when it comes to fourth year, it'll make life so much easier. So now what I have to do is, because I didn't do that, is I have to go back and just write down those common things before my rotations, which is just time consuming. So save yourself the time, save yourself the effort, and do that in third year to make your life in fourth year so much easier. This is an easy one, but if no one has told you, check the slate the day before you're going into the OR. Any of the surgical rotations or even OBS, you're going to be having surgeries, going in the OR, scrubbing in, that sort of thing. And what you can do is check the slate, and the slate is what they call essentially the schedule for the next day. And sometimes those are, at least in the hospital that I'm working at, they produce those a week in advance and then make minor changes if they have to. So for example, if you're going into the OR the next day, check the slate, check what surgeries you have, and prep a little bit for those surgeries. So you can either watch YouTube videos online to see what you're doing, or read some of those textbooks that I talked about and prepare yourself for the next day. You can do this in between cases, like I mentioned before, but I find it's best to do it the night before, and then in between the surgeries, just refresh yourself. And then that's, again, comes back to at UBC what we call the spiral. It's just going back and reviewing things again. And one thing that people often didn't do that I found was that on a Friday, you're not going to be in on the weekend, but you can ask whoever's working in the OR and check the slate for the Monday. That way you have the weekend to prep. So always do that. It'll make you look more prepared in the OR, and you'll just have a better time because you know exactly what to expect. You should always look out for each other. And when I say look out for each other, I really mean look out for your colleagues, your other students, your friends, look out for the other med students. Sometimes the people around you, your supervisors, your preceptors, nurses, whoever it is in the hospital, they're not always going to look out for your well-being. And it's really important, in my opinion, to look out for each other. So for example, if you're working with a team, let's say on internal medicine, if you're on call, take the consult at 3 or 4 p.m. If the consult's being given to one of your teammates, offer to take it, because honestly at that point, it might take at least an hour, and if you're on call, you're gonna be at the hospital anyway, so look out for each other. Take that on yourself so your teammates can leave the hospital. Long story short, look out for each other. That's one example. One more example of this, if you're taking on someone else's job, for example, for us on maternity, whoever was on during the day would be working until 5 p.m. and then whoever was on call would take over at 5 p.m. Make sure they get to leave at that time. If you're working on a team and you're coming on in the morning, if someone was on call, make sure they get to leave at 10 a.m. If there's something that needs to be done, offer to write their discharge summary for them so they can get out of the hospital, because at the end of the day, they were working all throughout the night and you're just starting. So I honestly believe what goes around comes around. If your teammates are happy, then at the end of the day, they'll look out for you as well. What I'm gonna do is end this video right here. It's starting to get a bit lengthy and I don't want to drag it out for too long. And I have a few more tips for you as well. So if you found that useful, those clerkship tips, then stay tuned for the next video. I'll do a part 2 of this and I'll have a few more that hopefully will help you along your clerkship year. And even in your electives, if this is something that you did not do previously. Also drop a comment below. What do you think of the new intro? I had some fun making it, so I'll probably keep it in a few of the next videos as well. As always, I will see you in the next one.